The South Bay open-air swimming pool was opened in 1915. For almost 70 years it was one of Scarborough's most popular attractions, even though it used unheated salt water from incoming tides. Previous generations of bathers had not yet been softened by experiencing Mediterranean sea temperatures. In this rare clip of film from the 1920s, competitors try vainly to mount floating barrel horses in the pool, and spectators watch them making fools of themselves. This must be one of the earliest moving pictures of the North Bay Miniature Railway, which still runs from Northstead Manor Gardens to Scarborough Mills. This sequence was shot soon after the railway opened in 1931. Pancake Tuesday. At noon every year, the pancake bell is rung to signal the start of festivities, when in the past shops and businesses closed for the day and everyone took to the streets and sands to dance, play and make merry. Now the only street play is communal skipping on the road known as the foreshore. Here you see a great crowd, young and old, joining in. Many of the young men are still in their wartime service uniforms. Like any old shipbuilding seaport, Scarborough once had its rope-making industry, and there's still plenty of old rope to be found in the town. The Scarborough most visitors never see is a very different place. The sea boils and rages in the winter gale. It crashes over the outer harbour wall or East Pier, which has withstood the sea's enormous power for the last 2 centuries. In such conditions, fishermen stay at home. The old town's narrow streets and steep steps are snowbound. But Scarborough's steep slopes make good sledging runs. And the lake in Peasholm Park becomes an ice skating rink. Visitors would hardly recognize the sweep of the North Bay in the grip of winter. For nearly a century now, every Boxing Day, a team of fishermen has played a game of robust and ruleless football against an opposing team of firemen, all in the cause of local charities on the foreshore sands. In this case, fireman means a stoker who fuels the ship's fire, so that the duel is literally between sail and steam. Among other entertainers that day were a Scottish pipe and drum band parading on the foreshore, and a Scottish dancer performing to a crowd in front of the lifeboat house. Now we move forward in time to 1951. Scarborough's Boy Scouts race against each other along Royal Albert Drive in North Bay in their homemade go-karts. The event was known as the Soapbox Derby, and clearly it drew a large crowd of onlookers who enjoyed every minute of it. The following short film was made by John Cave in the early 1950s. John Cave, who was born in 1909 and died in 1981, was a proud Scarboroughian, a descendant of a seafaring family who spent all his life in the town. He was well known and highly respected in Scarborough as a local historian, gifted photographer and valued member of the town's archaeological society. For visitors, the harbour was a place that provided several different kinds of pleasure boat trips. 40 years later, these pleasure trips around the bay or up and down the coast are still available. But now you'll not see fish like these at the harbour. The town hall is an impressive red brick mansion built in 1844. Between 1953 and 1955, this curious spaceship called Anastasia was exhibited in St. Nicholas Gardens, overlooking the foreshore. As now, the South Bay beach was crowded with holidaymakers, though then most of them remained fully clothed. These were times when Glasgow, Edinburgh, Bradford and Sheffield took their annual holidays en masse, and people travelled together in their thousands by the coach and trainload. Many of them came to Scarborough. The Giaconelli family still makes and sells delicious ice cream, and paddling in the sea never loses its appeal. But Scarborough is no longer queen of the watering places. This kiosk, which was demolished in 1980, stood on the site of one of the Sparwater Springs, which first made Scarborough Britain's earliest seaside resort in the 17th century. Instead of taking the waters for their gout or constipation, visitors to the spa building sat in deck chairs to listen to the music of Max Jaffa. Britain's seaside resorts enjoyed a happy renaissance in the 1950s, a golden decade after the austerity of the war and post-war years. More people than ever before were able to afford trips and holidays on the coast, whereas there were still very few who thought of, let alone could pay for, holidays abroad. The following promotional film from the 1950s illustrates beautifully some of the attractions which made Scarborough such a popular resort during this period.
There's no doubt that most people like to get away to the seaside for their annual holidays, in search of sun, sea and fresh air. But what are the other ingredients of a successful holiday? Well, it depends on what you like. This is Scarborough, a resort which claims to have literally something of everything for everyone in every mood. That's a tall order. But I think you'll soon see that variety is one claim that cannot be denied. Now, what sort of place is it? Well, it's more than just a holiday resort. For over 7 centuries, its harbour has played an important role in the history of the town. And today, its peaceful atmosphere lends character and charm. You know the way some people stand and watch a hole being dug in the road? It's the same thing with harbours. And here, with the comings and goings of the fishing fleet, there's always something of interest to see. Let's explore a little. Behind the harbour lies the old part of the town. Yes, and really old it is. History we're forced to learn from books at school is one thing, but to come face to face with the past of your own free will, and you find you want to learn more. There's plenty to explore here. But Scarborough is also a large town with excellent shops of all kinds, so you needn't make a desperate rush to buy things before you leave for your holiday. Being a centre of entertainment, top-line stars take part in the many first-rate shows, and that film you didn't want to miss is sure to come to one of the several large cinemas. And by the way, don't let baby put you off coming. You may say you've all those things in your hometown, but here's something you won't find in your own backyard. This is a frequent sight. Makes you feel really on holiday. Looking down on the placid waters is the castle with a long, exciting history of siege and bombardment. It's perched on the 300-foot rock, the scar of Scarborough, that divides the coast into the North Bay and the South. And who can deny that this setting must surely be partly responsible for bringing holidaymakers back here year after year. A stroll along the many carefully thought-out pathways often leads to the unexpected, making the simplest of pleasures something to look forward to. But you don't have to walk. For the very young, the old and infirm, and of course the downright lazy, after all you are on holiday, the cliff lifts whisk you up or right down to laze around the seafront. Getting around is no problem at all in Scarborough. There are taxis galore to greet you on your arrival, regular and frequent bus services to all parts of the town, and even more picturesque ways of getting around, although perhaps you prefer racing around in your own car. Yes, it's good to get away. Unfortunately, the fish sometimes think so too. An annual event is the Angling Festival, in which visitors are welcome to take part. Not very big, but then no other competitors, as this is one of the junior events. What else is there to see? He's obviously had a good holiday. Time he went home. And when the time comes to go home... Go home? But we haven't begun to know Scarborough yet. No, this is just the miniature railway, the most up-to-date in the country. This would be the delight of any child. If only the grown-ups would stop playing and not take up so many of the seats. Besides being great fun, the two-way service really is a useful way of getting to and from some of the other beaches. Another form of railway, of a rather more amphibious kind, gets you to your destination even more rapidly. Slap into the middle of the children's boating pool. Come on, let's have a go. The children, away from their parents, say, "Who wants to be on rails? Give us the open lake, a boat, and we're free to go wherever we like." Almost. The energy of these youngsters. We prefer something a little less like work. You don't have long to wait your turn. As one speedboat sets out, another is on its way back. If you're going to settle down to your midday meal, this is an ideal way of working up an appetite. On the other hand, this is a good way of working up the meal. When evening comes, distractions are plentiful. A million twinkling lights, stretching round as far as the eye can see, have transformed the town into a fairyland, tempting you out to come and enjoy the fun. wake up in the morning, evidence of the freshness of the air and mild climate is everywhere. You might not think that flowers would make much difference to your holiday, but when you find them not just in parks and gardens, but everywhere, believe me, it adds something very real. Within sight and sound of the sea in the Italian gardens, one might almost be in the heart of the Mediterranean. Like the Riviera too, is the setting of one of Scarborough's superb swimming pools. This illusion is helped with the heating of the water to an appropriate and agreeable temperature. You can relax in the blazing sunshine, sheltered from the sea breezes, or you can sit with a cup of tea, just watching others in the pool. Another pool, in a sheltered spot nearby, is specially reserved for the children and their model yachts. Learning how to set the sail becomes a serious task when navigating one's own private ocean. If you take a boat out to go fishing, or for a trip round the bay, you can ask the boatman of the changes he has seen. He'll tell you of the spa, centre of this famous watering place, and once patronized by royalty and nobility. For the first time in 100 years, the grounds are now open to the public, and without charge. There's an arcade of shops, theatre, and fine concert hall. The music is relayed outside to those who like to sit and listen in the early morning sunshine. One need never be at a loss for something to do in Scarborough. Bowls, tennis, putting, golf, riding, not just one place for each, but several, all within sight of the sea and all of the very highest order, in keeping with the genuine desire of the town to provide something of everything for everyone. Of course, children are always happy just playing on the beach. There's so much can be done with fine, firm, clean sand. And here it is in abundance, together with shallow, rocky pools that enable a fellow to dig and delve to his heart's content. It's pleasant enough lazing in the sun, but the sea is tempting. The bathing is excellent and perfectly safe for everyone. However, if you really feel you cannot face the plunge, try facing the other way round. The beaches are really marvelous for children, and it's not very difficult for them to have the time of their lives.
Ahoy there!
Something else you'll want to photograph. The perfect scale model of the famous Hispaniola, straight out of Robert Louis Stevenson's classic Treasure Island. It carries visitors to a real mystery island, helping them recapture the thrill of the immortal tale. Trust the boys to go climbing at once, but it's only to wave farewell to the ship before they start searching for treasure. Firework displays during the week announce to the whole coast that Scarborough is having a party and that you and I are welcome. Star shells and explosions are used for a different effect in the unique and incredibly realistic naval battle enacted with beautiful 30-foot scale models. If one can find time from all the other distractions, this is a must for the whole family. You'll never see anything quite like this anywhere else. Peasham Park, where this takes place, is normally the scene of far more peaceful pursuits. If you've spent the morning on the beach, an afternoon listening to one of the daily band concerts in these surroundings, it makes you wish your holiday would never end. Dreaming of adventure? Then seagoing vessels are ready to take you exploring the coast. There are several different trips to choose from, leaving every morning, afternoon and evening. We can get all the pleasure of going on a cruise, a feeling of really getting away from everything. Yet it can be just for the day, or even merely for an hour or two. For those who prefer to take their pleasures on dry land, there are plenty of events throughout the year. If you enjoy the thrill of road racing, you'll certainly find plenty of excitement at the International Motorcycle Race Meeting that takes place on Scarborough's famous Oliver's Mount circuit, now claimed to be one of the finest in the country. world champions always take part every year. For tennis of the highest order, the Yorkshire Lawn Tennis Club in Scarborough provides a setting for many important tournaments. Players from the Davis Cup teams and veterans like Fred Perry and Jack Kramer ensure that this Wimbledon on a reduced scale provides an exhibition of first-rate play, bringing much of the excitement of a centre court match. Naturally, you expect to find first-class cricket in Yorkshire. Scarborough's famous cricket ground has a succession of county fixtures, while the annual cricket festival, in addition to matches with the MCC, always has visits from such teams as the Australian and Pakistan 11s. So now you have an idea of some of the pleasures which await you. Sun, sea, bracing air with stretches of golden sands, oh yes. But there's so much more besides. There's so much to see. There's so much to hear. So much to do. So much for everyone to enjoy. When you're on your next holiday and drop a postcard to friends, if it's postmarked Scarborough, they can be certain this time that the usual phrase really does mean having a wonderful time. All this awaits you. And if you're wondering whether Scarborough might not be a bad bet for your next holiday, well, you've seen for yourself that its claim to have something for everyone is no exaggeration. If you want a real holiday, don't take my word for it. Ask someone who's been there.
There are 7 other places, 1 in Canada, 2 in the United States, 1 in the West Indies, and 3 in Australia, now called Scarborough. But none of them can compare with Scarborough in North Yorkshire, the first of that name in the world and parent of all the others. Scarborough pioneered the seaside holiday. It's Britain's oldest coastal resort. Bath, Epsom, Tunbridge Wells, Buxton and even Harrogate had health spas before Mrs. Thomasin Farrer discovered Scarborough's in the 1620s. But Scarborough's medicinal waters were unique because they bubbled out of the foot of the sea cliff onto an open sandy shore. And to drink them, spores, as those early visitors were called, had to cross the beach of South Bay at low tide. All previous pleasure and health resorts had been inland. Consequently, many of the familiar features of the summer seaside holiday, later enjoyed by millions over several generations, were first introduced at Scarborough. It was at Scarborough that men and women first deliberately immersed themselves in the sea in the belief that it would cure their illnesses. Scarborough invented the bathing machine and the swimming costume. It was also the first resort to provide pleasure boat trips and a great variety of recreations and entertainments on its spacious, flat, firm sands. Donkey rides, horse races, Punch and Judy shows, Pierrots. Scarborough had the earliest boarding houses for summer visitors, the first cliff lifts, holiday postcards and sea water skiing. Its earliest surviving holiday guide, dated 1725, contained what were probably the world's first commercial advertising lies. But Scarborough is not merely Blackpool on the North Sea coast. Unlike all Britain's other major seaside resorts, it has a long and richly eventful history. The fishing harbour and the old town are medieval in origin, character and construction. The upper town on St Nicholas Cliff, and spreading southwards to the Crescent, the esplanade and the spa, represent Scarborough's golden age as an exclusive playground for the rich and privileged. When the Grand Hotel opened in 1867, it was the most modern in Europe. In contrast, the north side, made fully accessible by the magnificent Marine Drive between 1897 and 1908, with its gardens and parks, miniature railway, open-air theatre and swimming pool, represents Scarborough's response to the huge increase in the numbers of holidaymakers who came to the seaside in the earlier part of this century. Finally, the amusement arcades and fast food shops that line the foreshore reflect the popular tastes of our own time. But Scarborough is more than just a seaside resort. Only short distances inland by road and still within the borough boundary is the unspoilt countryside of the North York Moors National Park. This is a view of the beautiful valley called Troutsdale, which has remained unchanged for centuries. Throxonby Mere is only 2 miles inland from Scarborough. It still provides local club anglers with good fishing. The waters of the River Derwent have been canalised and diverted to prevent flooding downstream in the Vale of Pickering. These diverted waters run into the sea at Scarborough Mills. Upstream, the Derwent is crystal clear and rich in trout for those skillful enough to catch them. This angler seems not to have hooked anything today, but it hardly matters when he can return to the luxury, peace and splendour of one of the area's best country hotels, Hackness Grange, in the beautiful village of that name. Along the North Sea coast, there are many other places worthy of note. This is a modern motel built on the cliffs overlooking Clayton Bay, just south of Scarborough. In this same area, there are several spacious caravan parks situated on the cliff tops overlooking the beach. A few miles further south again, you'll find another coastal gem, Filey, a great sweeping bay of golden sands protected to the north with a long peninsula, Filey Brig, and still used as a fishing haven. Filey's fishing boats are brought ashore across the sands by tractors. Filey Bay is a paradise for yachts of all kinds. The beach is so extensive and firm that horse riders can take their mounts over it at a gallop. Northwards from Scarborough, the coast is more rugged and the cliffs higher. Here is Runswick Bay, favoured by artists and mostly populated in the summer by visitors to this quaint, quiet village by the sea. South of Runswick Bay and just north of Whitby is Sand's End. Here, centuries of alum mining of its sea cliffs have gouged out a moonscape of barren and treeless slopes. North again to Staithes, once an important fishing village and now a mecca for artists in search of the past. This coast has strong associations with Captain James Cook, probably England's greatest sea navigator and discoverer. As a boy, he worked as a grocer's assistant at Staithes. After 18 months there, he moved south down the coast to Whitby, where for 3 years he was apprenticed to a ship-owning coal merchant. He first learned the art and mystery of sea navigation in Whitby colliers, and later all his voyages of discovery were made in ships built there. His statue stands on the west cliff at Whitby, appropriately looking southwards to the Antipodes. The jawbones of a whale commemorate Whitby's past as a great whaling port. Whitby now attracts many summer visitors to its harbour front and stores. But it's still an important fishing port, where trawlers find shelter along the banks of the River Esk before it runs into the sea. But such is the openness of this river mouth and the severity of the sea here that it's been found necessary to build gigantic stone piers on both sides. Under West Cliff, there's a good sandy beach for holidaymakers. For the adventurous, there are boat excursions out of the river mouth and into the open sea. The East Cliff is occupied by the ruins of St Mary's Abbey, closed in 1539, and the heavily buttressed parish church. The medieval remains of the abbey stand prominently on a wide, windswept grassy plain. On the coast south of Whitby is a jumble of stone houses and narrow, winding, steep streets called Robin Hood's Bay. The inaccessibility of the bay, as locals call it, has saved it from the noise and congestion of modern motor traffic. If you believe Robin Hood was ever here, you'll believe anything. Not least of Bay's attractions are its old-fashioned, curious but very friendly public houses. Finally, southwards again, to the great rocky coastal headland known as Peak or Ravenscar. On it is another famous country hotel, once a private house, called Raven Hall. We've now returned to Scarborough to enjoy its rich and varied nightlife along the so-called Golden Mile that stretches from the Spa to the harbour side. Here you'll find all the fun of the fair, day and night. No shortage of one-armed bandits in the amusement arcades on the foreshore. The St Nicholas Hotel stands on the cliff overlooking South Bay. Here are some well-known locals sampling its cocktail bar. The spa also provides nighttime concerts, shows and dancing. Jimmy Corrigan's amusement arcade on the foreshore is a blaze of lights. The Royal Hotel is Scarborough's oldest and most elegant. Part of it dates back to an 18th century assembly room, a gathering place for the English aristocracy and gentry at play. This line of chorus girls are part of one of the futurist summer shows. Even in 1970, Scarborough boasted many nightclubs and discos. Fiesta, the Four Seasons, Two B's, Beer Keller, Penthouse, Emma's and the Pentagon. In short, Scarborough has everything for everyone. From the vulgar and cheap to the elegant and expensive. From fish and chips on plastic to the best in Italian cuisine. From bingo to roulette. From discos to ballrooms. From bed and breakfast boarding houses to luxurious hotels. From Gypsy Rose Lee to Alan Ayckbourn. And so ends our journey through time. We hope it brought back fond memories.
Scarborough.